Greetings and welcome. My name is Kaberia. So excited to have you with me just to discuss a bit of our secret formula. We are talking today about instructional development, and I'm going to walk you guys through just how we achieve what we do through our tools. And this is just the framework that we are using to get at where we are aiming. Great. So we are all aware that, the narrative of the African continent is changing, and it is on our hearts, to bring the full counsel of God. In response to these challenges, we are stuck between culture and modernity, and also questioning where our faith stands in this entire mix. So we are really keen on bringing African solutions to African challenges centered on the truth of Scripture. So the following will outline our approach and how we do what we are doing. So you'll see from this model that the baseline is African culture, and from that we focus on a specific challenge, right? And we want to view that challenge in a context. What's the context of a particular challenge? And once we identify that, we also want to look at some insight. Does the scripture have something to say about it? Next, what can we do differently? And you notice this single thread, we are just picking exactly from, like, almost organically from each of these elements, and these will feed into something we are calling the Maadili platform. That's our learning space where we develop these tools and where we dialogue in this fashion. And Maadili means virtue in the Swahili language, and we are praying that virtue will come out of these discussions, these tools that will, one, provide contextual responses, number two, provide specific responses, okay, and finally naturalize solutions to those particular challenges that will be definitely based on the truth and gospel driven. So that is just the framework, that is our formula, and let me walk you through a bit of the details. So what to know. Usually, instructional development has two basic elements: what to know and what to do differently. And this is something we are really keen on. We are celebrating diversity. Okay, we want to also inform on the nature of challenges within various communities and localities. Secondly, the challenge we identify, we want to communicate and highlight through artwork. Okay, different media forms. We're dreaming even of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed media, okay, which allow for reader engagement on how the matter is tackled. Next, we want to view it and also highlight what are some of the falsities, what are some of the nuanced, uh, the details that maybe we overlook surrounding a specific challenge. Then finally, we want to line this entire thing up, line them up against the scriptures, and see what we can pick up. Here's a good example. If we talk about just food, food brings people together like really nothing else. And we talk about food on the African continent. It's so much tied to the identities of people. It's so much tied to entire uh, uh, pastoral communities or nomadic communities. There's really a focus around how they survive. Basically, is really so tied to their food. So a really great way of discussing that, and the idea of how societies are, how they're relating, probably would be a really interesting thing to focus on, is just food, right? For instance, even the making of food would be tied again to some implements. And here we have a great example of just a pot, and figuring out what's allowed in the pot, who makes the pot, who's allowed in the kitchen, right? Who's allowed to partake, all these things. Um, you know, this particular artifact is from the Nupe, um, is a Nupe pot from a village in Nigeria. And this can be a really wonderful tool for engaging African culture, right? if we jump across now to Eastern Africa and we look at a specific challenge, maybe we want to discuss the family unit, the breakdown of the family unit. You see, who makes the call? You know, can open a unique dialogue on the roles we have, you know, how that is changing, and even the threats that this presents to the way we have been culturally doing things, traditionally doing things, as well as the way modernity, proposes that we do things. You'll notice this this image, captures um, a really communal affair. In fact, I understand that uh, probably you can comment if you know exactly what is being eaten, and you can also tell us that it's necessary. It's encouraged that you don't just feed yourself, you focus on feeding someone else. And it's really interesting. You see the implements that they're using, and now contrast this specific challenge with a contextual view. The left is a you know uh, high table. I don't think people eat like this every day. That's a lot of dishwashing, but it's interesting that there was one implement that was being used in the previous image, and now we see there are a number of implements being used, and that is uh, the the uh, I don't know if it is continental table or definitely as a high table. Okay. And it's really individualistic, but if we look at this image on the right, wonderful painting that really just displays there's coffee being made there in the background, and it's being served, and the idea is really just to serve and enjoy one another. These are really interesting ways. So contextually, what does it look like when we eat? What does it feel like when we eat? What is the focus when we eat and when we share? All right, what does that suggest about family? Then we can move to the next step, which is our scriptural insight. Here's an example from Acts 10 in the Bible, and we find that, Cornelius, it is said that he and all his family were devout and God fearing. And this is another painting that captures the idea of, the apostles and specifically Peter being invited into Cornelius' home, and it really says a number of things. If this leader, in fact, of what was the what was occupying um, uh, Palestine and the land of Israel, was a Gentile, and his family was seen as devout and God fearing, you know. So, how does an invitation to belong to God's family make this an example for what our family and friendships should be? This is just a really simple illustration of how we approach different issues, different challenges, and allow us to really rethink them in an engaging and dynamic way. Then definitely once we identify that, we want to see what can we do differently. You see, and that is always important to highlight and again celebrate the positive things. We want to also hold out the imperatives of scripture, you see, against the pervading views and perceptions that need to be challenged, and or that we should also question in the converse. And then we want to enable the learner. This is really key for us. We want to enable the learner to make decisions based on values that they're able to develop, they are challenged to develop, and that they can exercise, different parts of our tools. We invite the reader to decide the way, the direction the story needs to go, decide the way the narrative should go, express yourself and say that we do one, two, three things differently or otherwise. So yeah, Madil is a platform, and we are building that at Petersmine, and definitely there is a wonderful tool coming very soon. We want everyone to sample that and have a look at it. Let me just share this again before we get into the tool that we have executed to date. Right, this is the Last Supper. You see, the idea of contextual responses is very, very critical. You can see the Last Supper was not, is mazot, is the Jewish, unleavened bread, but they're eating something different. Again, you comment and let us know what you think is the representation here of Jesus with his 12, right? And it's really important that if we kept just that train of thought of family as a unit and food and fellowship, you see, the primacy of communion and fellowship, should really compel us to how we commune, not just to eat, but also to fellowship at church and at home. And that should be a very, very clear expression of our celebration of love, which really begins with God and has been really wonderfully expressed through his setting up of the church through a setting just like this. And so this is what we are really aiming at. That is just our framework again, and that is our method to the madness. That is our master of the method, and we want to really invite you again. This is our flagship tool. It is Maumbile, and we are focusing on 12 challenges to God honoring sexuality. And it is a value based approach using this exact formula that I've just explained and shared with you. So you can visit us at petersmine.wordpress.com, and that is the Maumbile page, and you'll learn exactly what we are trying to do and how we're doing it and when you can get your hands on this. Definitely there is some participation in the link, and um, you can get to sample it earlier than most. So thank you, and God bless you. Have a lovely time and share.